In 2007, the police in Yorkshire were hunting for a ghost. A woman with no face, a criminal with no fingerprints. She was a shadow that burned estates and left behind only one thing, a single black thorn branch. The authorities called her a terrorist. The poor called her justice, but they were all wrong. Because the truth was far more terrifying. Eleanor Whitmore grew up invisible. She was the daughter of a laid-off miner. Her mother was sick, and the bills were piling up. But poverty wasn't what broke her spirit. It was humiliation. At 17, she got a job at the Harrington estate, home to the wealthiest family in North Yorkshire. Lord William Harrington was an untouchable man, feared by all. One winter evening, during a grand charity dinner, Eleanor accidentally spilled wine on Lady Harrington's dress. The entire room went silent. Then, laughter erupted. She was forced to kneel and clean the stain while the guests watched, their phones recording, their faces full of smirks and whispers. The very next morning, she was accused of stealing silverware, fired on the spot, and blacklisted. Within a week, her family was evicted. Her father collapsed from the stress just days later, and the Harringtons, they bought the family's cottage for pennies. That night, Eleanor Whitmore disappeared. Months passed. Then, strange things began to happen around the moors. An anonymous tax investigation was launched into the Harrington family. Private files detailing their corruption were leaked to the press. Luxury cars were vandalized. The power was cut during elite parties at the estate. No one was ever hurt, but a chilling fear began to spread. And at every scene, the same symbol was left behind, a thorn branch, painted black. The police formed a special task force to hunt down this phantom. Inspector Daniel Graves, a cold and analytical man, was put in charge. He quickly noticed something odd about the crimes. They weren't random acts of chaos. They specifically targeted people tied to illegal land seizures and financial fraud. This wasn't someone seeking mayhem. This was someone seeking balance. Inspector Graves knew he wasn't just chasing a criminal. He was chasing a ghost with a purpose. He felt a shiver run down his spine. The Black Thorn, as the media dubbed her, was more methodical than any criminal he had ever pursued. He started digging into old records, searching for a connection, a motive that would explain this calculated rage. He felt like he was always one step behind, following a trail of perfectly placed breadcrumbs that led him deeper into a web of darkness. He was only beginning to understand. Then, things escalated. An abandoned warehouse owned by Harrington Holdings burned to the ground at midnight. There were no casualties, but crucial financial records were turned to ash. The news channels exploded. The Black Thorn was now labeled an extremist, a domestic terrorist, but public opinion was fiercely divided. Some people secretly admired her. Graffiti started appearing on city walls, "Thorns protect roses." Inspector Graves, poring over maps and old archives, finally traced a pattern. A network of old, disused railway tunnels ran beneath the moors, connecting many of the targeted locations. He led a raid on the tunnels, his team sweeping through the damp, dark passages. But they found only the cold ashes of recent fires, and a single message carved into a stone wall: "You built your empire on bones." The message was a direct challenge, and Graves felt it was meant for him. The sophistication of the operation was staggering. It required knowledge of local history, infrastructure, and the inner workings of Harrington's empire. The Blackthorn wasn't just an angry youth. She was a strategist. The fire wasn't an act of blind rage. It was a surgical strike. Just when the investigation hit a dead end, a tip came in. It was anonymous. It gave a location, an abandoned textile mill on the edge of the moors. Graves didn't hesitate. He led the raid himself, his team storming the decaying building. Inside, the scene was surreal. The vast, empty space was lit by candles. Maps of the county covered the walls, connected by red strings. Documents were pinned everywhere, detailing years of corruption. Photos of the victims of illegal evictions stared back at them. And in the center of it all stood Eleanor Whitmore. She was calm, composed, as if she was waiting for them. She didn't resist arrest. As the officers cuffed her, she leaned in and whispered to Inspector Graves, "You're arresting the wrong villain." Her words hung in the air, heavy with a meaning he couldn't yet grasp. He had his suspect, a face of the Blackthorn, but a deep sense of unease settled over him. It felt too easy. The media frenzy was insane. Headlines screamed domestic extremist, radical arsonist, dangerous vigilante. The trial was a national spectacle, but during the proceedings, Eleanor didn't defend herself. Instead, she exposed everyone, just as the prosecution laid out its case. Encrypted backups of all the destroyed files were released online. The data dump was a bombshell. It contained signed receipts for bribes, proof of illegal land grabs, and records of secret deals between politicians and corporations. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic for the region's elite. Even Inspector Graves was shocked to his core, because buried deep within those files was his own father's signature. His father, a respected former council member, had approved dozens of unlawful evictions years ago, including the Whitmore family's eviction. In that moment, Graves' entire world shattered. The line between right and wrong, between law and justice, blurred into nothing. He was part of the system that had created the very monster he was tasked to hunt. The court was ready to deliver its sentence. Everyone expected Eleanor to be imprisoned for life. Then, breaking news hit every channel. Lord Harrington was found dead in his private study. The official cause of death was a massive heart attack. There were no signs of forced entry, no evidence of foul play, but on his desk, placed neatly next to his pen, was a single black thorn. The entire country assumed Eleanor had orchestrated it from behind bars, but it was impossible. She was in a maximum security facility under constant surveillance. Desperate for answers, Inspector Graves visited her in her cell. He demanded to know how she did it. For the first time since her arrest, Eleanor smiled. It was a cold, knowing smile. "Did you ever consider," she said softly, "that I was never alone?" Silence. Then, a montage of flashbacks reveals the truth. The vandalism, the leaks, the fires. Each act was carried out by different people, different hands. A retired factory worker, a disgruntled clerk, a heartbroken farmer. The black thorn wasn't one woman. It was a movement. It was dozens of victims, silently connected by their shared pain, all waiting for a signal. Eleanor wasn't the mastermind. She was the symbol. She allowed herself to be caught, to become the focus of the world's attention. Because while everyone was watching her, the real work continued in the shadows. Months later, Eleanor is sentenced to prison. But her sacrifice ignites a fire. Corruption investigations spread across the nation like wildfire, and one by one, powerful names begin to fall. Inspector Graves resigns from the police force, unable to reconcile his past with his duty. On a rainy evening, he finds a single blackthorn branch placed on the windshield of his car. Attached is a small note. It reads, "You can still choose a side." The camera pans out, showing graffiti appearing in cities all across England. The simple, stark symbol of a blackthorn. The legend of the woman who burned the moors grows. You can arrest a woman, but you cannot arrest an idea. And sometimes, justice doesn't knock on the door. It burns quietly, patiently, in the dark. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video.